George Dorset and discovers that the situation is worse than she had thought.
Dorset walked beside Lily in silence till they reached the slopes east of the casino. Then abruptly he said, "You've seen Bertha?" "No, when I left the yacht she was not yet up." He received this with a laugh like the whirring sound in a disabled clock. Not yet up. Had she gone to bed? Do you know at what time she came on board? This morning at 7. At 7? Lily started. What happened? An accident to the train? He laughed again. She and Ned missed the train, all the trains. They had to drive back. Well, she hesitated, feeling how little even this necessity accounted for the fatal lapse of hours. Well, they couldn't get a carriage at once at that time of night, you know. The explanatory note made it almost seem as though he were putting the case for his wife. And when they finally did, it was only a one-horse cab, and the horse was lame. How tiresome! I see, she affirmed, with the more earnestness because she was so nervously conscious that she did not. And after a pause, she added, "I'm so sorry, but ought we to have waited?" Waited for the one-horse cab? It would scarcely have carried the 4 of us, do you think? She took this in what seemed the only possible way, with a laugh intended to sink the question itself in his humorous treatment of it. Well, it would have been difficult, but it would have been jolly to see the sunrise. Yes, the sunrise was jolly, he agreed. Was it? You saw it then? I saw it, yes, from the deck. I waited up for them. Naturally, I suppose you were worried. Why didn't you call on me to share your vigil? He stood still, dragging at his mustache. I don't think you would have cared for its denouement, he said with sudden grimness. Again, she was disconcerted by the abrupt change in his tone, and in one flash she saw the peril of the moment and the need of keeping her sense of it out of her eyes. Denouement, isn't that too big a word for such a small incident? The worst of it is the fatigue which Bertha has probably slept off by this time. She clung to the note bravely, though its futility was now plain to her in the glare of his miserable eyes. Don't, he broke out with the hurt cry of a child. And while she tried to merge her sympathy and her resolve to ignore any cause for it in one ambiguous murmur of deprecation, he dropped down on the bench near which they had paused and poured out the wretchedness of his soul. It was Lily who broke the silence by rising from her seat. With the clearing of her vision, the sweep of peril had extended, and she saw that the post of danger was no longer at Dorset's side. If you won't go back, I must. Don't make me leave you, she urged. But he remained mutely resistant, and she added, what are you going to do? You really can't sit here all night. I can go to a hotel. I can telegraph my lawyers. He sat up, roused. By Jove, Selden's at Nice. I'll send for Selden. Lily reseated herself with a cry of alarm. No, no, no. He swung round on her. Why not Selden? He's a lawyer, isn't he? One will do as well as another in a case like this. As badly as another. I thought you relied on me to help you. You do, by being so sweet and patient. If it hadn't been for you, I'd have ended the thing long ago, but now it's got to end. He rose, straightening himself. You can't want to see me ridiculous. She looked at him kindly. That's just it. Then she broke out with, well, go over and see Mr. Selden. You'll have time to do it before dinner. Oh, dinner, he mocked. But she left him with the smiling rejoinder, dinner on board, remember. We'll put it off till 9, if you like.
Lily returns to the Sabrina to find Mrs. Dorset at tea with Lord Hubert and the Duchess of Beltshire, as if nothing had happened. Lily looks surprised. They are leaving.
This led to some final pleasantries in which, as it seemed to Lily, Mrs. Dorset bore her part with astounding bravery, and at the close of which Lord Hubert called back with an air of numbering heads. And of course we may count on Dorset too. Oh, count on him, his wife assented gaily. She was keeping up well to the last, but as she turned back from waving her adieu, Lily said to herself that the mask must drop and the soul of fear look out. Mrs. Dorset turned back slowly. Perhaps she wanted time to steady her muscles. At any rate, they were still under perfect control when, dropping once more into her seat, she remarked to Miss Bart with a faint touch of irony, "I suppose I ought to say good morning." If it was a cue, Lily was ready to take it, though with only the vaguest sense of what was expected of her in return. There was something unnerving in the contemplation of Mrs. Dorset's composure, and she had to force the light tone in which she answered, "I tried to see you this morning, but you were not yet up." "No, I got to bed late. After we missed you at the station, I thought we ought to wait for you till the last train." She spoke with just the least tinge of reproach. "You missed us? You waited for us at the station?" Now, indeed, Lily was too far adrift in bewilderment to measure the other's words or to keep watch on her own. "But I thought you didn't get to the station till after the last train left." Mrs. Dorset met this with the immediate query, "Who told you that?" "George. I saw him just now in the gardens." "Ah, is that George's version?" Poor George. He was in no state to remember what I told him. He had one of his worst attacks this morning, and I packed him off to see the doctor. Do you know if he found him?" Lily, still lost, made no reply, and Mrs. Dorset settled herself indolently in her seat. "He'll want to see him. He was horribly frightened. Whenever anything upsetting happens, it always brings on an attack."